Record. Here we go. Okay, we are recording now, and I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, all right. Well, I don't have anybody else in a waiting room, so I'm just going to get started then. Um, and then if they pop in late, that's fine. So, um, you haven't created any needs yet, so we'll start there. When you come into the site, obviously it's going to look a little bit like this. Uh, Asking you to log in or sign up at the top, or it'll bring you to what it looks like in the home page, which is like this. You can have option to volunteer now or register your organization. Since your organization is already registered and most people this training is going out to are, we're not going to go into that right now. So we're just going to go into login, and I'm going to log into my account. And then you'll see at the top, my little gray bar has an extra tool. It has manager, obviously, because I have manager access. So just ignore that button. It's not supposed to be there on yours. So when you go in to create a need, you can do it one of two ways. You can go down here and select needs, and you can click add new need, or you can go up and select my agency, which leads you to the same page, and you can go into needs and then add your need. Another useful trick is cloning needs. So if I know that I need another office volunteer and I just need to tweak it a little bit, I can come in here and I can just click on it and be like, yep, I want to change like what the tasks are. And so instead of selecting it, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go edit. And then I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and I'm going to select clone need. And then that's going to take everything that already exists and spit it out on a brand new need. But it's going to have this little thing right here, this disclaimer that says copy. That bugs me, so I like to take that off. But if you want to leave that on there, that's up to you. Or you could put in office volunteer, with more details, and then I can change. I don't want them to do cleaning windows or the vacuuming floors. I just need help with shredding paper and digitizing records. So I'm going to leave that as in office volunteer clerical. And then that way they know that's exactly what that need is. You can come down here. It does reset all of this information. So the duration, the capacity, if it's a virtual need or not, all of that, you're going to have to fill that back in. And that's super simple. You're just going to put in how long you want it to go on for. Is ongoing is tricky. I don't know if I've shared that already, but when you hit is ongoing, it says that it is for 24/7. So I only recommend doing is ongoing if your agency actually is open 24/7. So a lot of hospitals have this set up. Some, helplines have it set up this way, which is great and it works well for them. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't know what your volunteer needs look like over at Family Promise exactly, but I know for us, we are only open Monday through Friday from, 9 a.m. to 3. So we're not going to ever have anything for United Way that says is ongoing. Usually what I use the most is the custom shifts or reoccurring shifts. And that's where you can put in the date, amount of hours, how many people you need for custom shifts, or reoccurring shifts is nice because then I can say I want it to be, my office hours exactly. And I can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I want it to happen every week. And then I'll just put in when I want it to go for. So our office volunteer that we have, I have it set up Monday through Friday every week. And then I have it going for a year is what I put it in as. And then you can put in some nice stuff down here, which is like example shift times. And then again, how many volunteers you need is the capacity. And then when you're done with that, you would just come down here and you would hit create need. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want that one to go live. So same system for if you are doing events. You're going to go to your My Agency tab up at the top. You're going to go over to events. And then it's the exact same thing. These are all previous needs that we have had, or sorry, not needs, events that we have had. And once they expire, they just go gray. And then you can still go in and reactivate them and change the date. Or you can always go add new event over here. And it has very similar features, title, description, date, end date, event contact, and then all of the additional information that somebody might need. A good feature that this does have that I used for like this event is the enable RSVPs, and that just updates you whenever somebody RSVPs and lets you know what their email is. Um, the only thing I don't love about this feature is at this moment in time, it doesn't allow you to export a master list of people who have RSVP'd. So you have to go in and grab them individually who RSVP'd as it lets you know. And then you can build your own list. So I wouldn't recommend it if you are planning on a large event that you need to be in contact with a huge list of RSVPs. And then be in constant contact with them, especially if that list is ever growing. It just creates a lot of work for you and is hard to keep updated. So, but it is good if you just need like, you know, how many people are thinking about coming so that we know how much food to bring. That's a great tool to use for that. Um, let's see here. You can add images to this kind of thing very easily. You would just go into the upload or you can click and drag. I already have some images uploaded, so I'll just show you what that looks like. And these all just get saved on here, so you can keep reusing the same images. You can also do this on a need post. So if you're doing a need post and you want an image of people helping you in the past cleaning up trash, or what have you, you can put it in here. You can size it however you like. You can align it however you like. And then you can add text still. So it's a really nice, easy way to add just some detail for volunteers. The more detail volunteers have when they're looking at these volunteer posts, the better, because volunteers want to know what they're expecting, what their experience is going to be when they show up on the ground. It makes them feel more comfortable and it also makes them more willing to reply to a need. Which will bring me to my next thing that I would like to share with you. And I'm just trying to keep a track to make sure nobody's in a waiting room. Sorry. Um, let's see here. So when you are looking at your needs, there's something that I'm going to show you that I think is a nice tool. When you're looking at your needs, you can see it's showing me need title, privacy, initiative, date, total responses, status. Yours might look different depending on how you have it set up. I have altered the way that mine looks from the way that it shows up just naturally when you first activate your account. And how you do that is you hit table filter, and then you can go through and select what you would like to see on this. So I personally like to see the total responses so that if I missed one, I can see that that number has changed. So for that, you're going to go over to the total responses tab. And then you can also check to make sure it's an active need via status. You can also make sure that your needs are public. You can create private needs. Say you have a volunteer team who wants to come in and they know it's going to be 5 people, and they only want those 5 people to volunteer. You can create a private need and then send them the direct link to reply to that, and then only they can do so. So that's why when you see a need here, it might say private. The most common posts that we get are public. I think the only time I've really dealt with a private need was during Day of Caring, and we kept a need private because there was an organization that was waiting for final numbers on how many volunteers they were going to bring to a project. So just make sure you have that set up the way you like. That was something that really bugged me for a while. And once I was able to make the adjustments on it through this table to see how I wanted to see it, it just made the experience on the agency end much more user friendly for me from United Way's perspective. Um, To make sure your account looks nice, I would encourage you to make sure you already have a logo, but there are some agencies that are missing a logo. If you don't have a logo, it looks a little wonky next to all the other ones. Let's go through here and see if I can find one. So you see, like, the logo is depicted really nicely in the center of all of these agencies. But as you can see, when you scroll down and then you just finally, it's just the first letter. So just making sure that you keep an updated logo on your agency is always a good idea. Um, and you can do that by just going over to my agency. You hit upload logo, and then I just resized it on Canva and made it a square. And that's what I did with some of our images along here as well. I don't think that your account has any of these. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we do have just some staff photos for United Way, some donation photos. I have a flyer up for our coat drive that we're doing right now just to help it stay circulated and relevant. That's actually a picture with you guys right there. That's Family Promise. That was our most recent, I think, day of caring with you guys. Some pictures from Spring Dash, some board members, just whatever you want to throw on there because it just makes it have more personality for a volunteer. When they come on to check out what United Way is all about, it's automatically going to flip through and you can see our staff is here. It gives you our location, our hours, a little bit about what we do, but it just puts a face to the name and it just comes off more welcoming. And can also just give them an idea of what your, causes might be, what your projects might look like. And then of course you have your agency events down at the bottom and then our top agency needs. So it just kind of rounds out the page a little bit more. Same with making sure that you link all of your social media to the page so that they can find that. Um, if you don't have social media, that's obviously, fine too, but just so that they can, find you easier through all of those channels. Tagging all of these in your agency profile is always a good idea. And then that is down here in the additional options. And you just add the link right here to each section. And then it just automatically pops them up. Um, so I'm trying to, so the bulk of what I wanted to get into is the user agency experience. Um, we have had a lot of volunteer responses in the last few months, but we have had very little um, tracking on the website. And that's important for two reasons. Um, well, two main reasons. When I first log in as a user on my dashboard, it pops out this really cool thing that's just about me. This is just about my volunteer hours, and it sorts them by category and it tells me how many I've worked with, how many agencies I'm a fan of, which if you're a fan, that's like following a social media account. I get notified when those agencies post something. So I'm the first to know. It keeps track of how many responses to volunteer needs I have responded to. It keeps track of any events that I've RSVP'd to. If your agency has the impact value set up, then it will tell you how much dollar value your hours have equated to. And then down here, because my profile knows so much about me, it has all of the needs that it hand selected for me based on my interests. But how do I get this information? That comes down to the agency. The agency is responsible for approving volunteer hours. So when a person responds to a need and they hop over here and they say, I want to work with the American Red Cross, and they select respond to need, then that just hooks them up with the volunteer coordinator or whoever is running the website for Red Cross. It doesn't automatically log those hours for that person. And people want hours for a lot of different reasons. On this side, it allows you to share it on social media. It also allows you to, track it for your own gratification. We've been working with some of the youth groups and school districts around here to try to build maybe like a volunteering like competition kind of thing, and just see what that would look like in the next few years. But there's lots of different reasons somebody might want to know where they're volunteering and how many hours. It's also just interesting to see, if you're volunteering a lot, I know I worked a bunch in clerical, I worked a bunch in advocacy, but then, one of my bigger categories is I worked like 16 hours with animals, let's say. It just gives you some nice, interesting statistics about your volunteer hours. But it also works great for people who maybe, if you're using this site to track hours of volunteerism for court mandated volunteerism, um, that is also an option. So again, how we get this information, that's up to the agency. So when I go over to my agency side, I had one of my staff members sign up to volunteer just for an example today. But I'm going to go over to my needs and I'm going to scroll down and see that I have one response for, oh, sorry. I have one response for the Alice task force. And I'm going to view those responses. I'm going to say, oh, Rebecca volunteered for that. Now I'm going to hit add hours. You don't have to check this person in and add their hours right when they get there. It's not like you're punching their time clock. You can do this days later. For Family Promise, I know you guys did a service project with Day of Caring. So honestly, you could potentially go into your account and view those responses to that need and still add the hours so that all those volunteers get credit for their hours. That's the great reason for it on a volunteer end, but there's also huge benefit to it for an agency end. So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to show you how to check somebody in. So you just would hit add hours. You get the preset of whatever the shift is. So our office volunteer hours, which Sarah volunteered for, is listed as 2. But if I know that volunteer stayed because there was just extra work to do for a half hour, I can change it. Or maybe they had to leave early and I know they left, 1 hour. I can just hit add. That automatically pops up on Sarah's user. She doesn't have to do anything now. She's ready to go. Now, if you say had a volunteer who came in and didn't register on the site per se, but they have an account and they volunteer, you can also manually add their hours. So if you know their email and you know that they volunteered as an office person or as an Alice Task Force participant, all you do is pop in their email, add manual response, and it's going to pop up here. Yes, I know. I have already responded to that. And it's going to pop up here, and then it's going to spit out that in your responses. And there I am because I manually added it. And then you can go like this and say, yes, I've already added them. We're going to add those hours. And then that pops out on that person's user. So you don't have to have them register through here. I've had office volunteers come in who forgot to sign up for the day, but they want to get the hours. And so I just go in and I manually add their email. And if they have an account, it's going to pop up. Now, why that's good on an agency end is because it's going to track how many hours you're getting responses for. This is good for grant writing. This is good for end of year reporting. This is good for, if you're just sharing your impact work. Computer's dying. Hold on one second. Let's get this guy plugged in. So I'll show you how to export that as soon as I get this plugged in. Sorry about that. Do you have any questions so far? I know I'm moving pretty quickly.
I have questions about logging for the day of the caring because I don't see that on my end. Something that happens. So maybe at the end you can show me how to do that specifically.
I would love to show you how to do that. Yes. Let me plug this in. I'll show you how to do that at the end.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're saved. We're not gonna turn off on me. Okay. So when I go in to my needs, I can do this 2 ways. I can export my needs and I can select, I only want the information about that and hit export needs or responses. In this case, we're wanting responses. It's going to email that directly to me and then it just pops out a link that spits out an Excel sheet. So it's very easy to use. But my preferred way to do it is to come over here and select stats. And this gives you at a glance what my volunteerism looks like right now. So I can see that I had Wesley volunteer in office on the 30th. Rebecca volunteered on the 14th, and then on the 13th. And then we also have Sarah who volunteered on November 7th. And all of this is listed for me. Now I can also just easily export those responses. And then again, that just is going to get sent directly to my email. There is a slight delay, so we're going to wait and we're going to check it just a minute. So again, you have that table filter. You can see how that's shown. If I don't want to know people's emails, I just want to know their user hours. I don't care about where their shift begins. But I do want to know their phone number if it's listed, then that's going to pop out. And then I'm going to go over to an important piece of making sure you're getting responses. Being sure that the setting is on is very important if you were an agency manager. I've had a few people with it turned off and they have not received email notifications when somebody responds. And then they've had a volunteer show up out of the blue and they've been like, yep, I signed up on your website. You said you had an opening on, Tuesday the 5th and nobody's here. Make sure that you have this turned on. When you go to your profile, you're going to go over to your edit profile. And again, this is your personal profile because your personal profile is connected to your agency. So this isn't in my agency. This is up in my profile. View my profile. And you're going to scroll down here to data and communication settings. Make sure that you have some of these turned on. You can select it however you would like, but you need to know agency related notifications. I have it set for activity tasks and updates. Um, Site manager, that's not important, but volunteer notifications and email blasts, all very important so that you make sure that you're getting notified when a volunteer reaches out to you. That gives you automatically their email, which is required for them to sign up so that you can get in touch with them as soon as possible to make sure that they know all the details. Um, I do not recommend unsubscribing from all of these. Please do not do that. All right, and then we have you can turn on the allow scheduling. That's always a good thing too. Viewing your schedule as an agency. It's ready. All right. So here's our exported file that we exported a few minutes ago. And it's just going to pop out all of those responses in a little Excel sheet for me, which hopefully, this is going to have more hours for you than it does for me right now. But then I've got all my hours. I've got the contact information if I need it. I've got what types, and then I can build a report based around that. And you can do this for select times. You can set it for just the month of November, or you can set it for, I want it all calendar year long, and then you can decide how long that report is going to be. And then I have one last thing to share with you, and that is viewing the volunteer schedule. The volunteer schedule is great for just at a glance when you know you're going to have volunteers show up. Let me come down here. Oh, sorry. Go into my agency, and then you're going to go schedule. You're going to scroll down, and then it gives you this little key right here that's just at a glance. You can see how much of this shift has been taken. And then it just gives you a calendar view of, if you have a volunteer opportunity that day, how full is it? How empty is it? Does it have unlimited availability? And this just goes until all your needs stop. So if you're relying on this to manage your volunteerism schedule, this is also an option for you. You can look at it by the day this way, or you can look at it through the month view. Okay. All right, that is all I had on my list. So I guess if you have any questions, this is a good time to do so. And I know that you did have one about day of caring, correct?
Yes, and I figured it out by going to stats.
Wonderful. I'm so glad.
So I put the date range in because I know they did it. I was actually a volunteer here managing that
Mm-hmm.
day. So I put the date range in.
Mm-hmm.
I see one person on here. That's all I see
Mm-hmm.
for September 25th. There's only one person that registered. I don't know if she registered
Okay.
or should I click on her name or
So, are you trying to just log her hours? Or are you just trying to view her profile information? What are you trying to do with it?
so she gets, uh,
Okay.
I know there's
So
no,
you would just do it just how I showed you. You'd go in and you'd click
edit.
on, where did it go? There you go.
Oops.
I'm gonna go in and just look at your
Okay.
needs and responses. And then you would go down to ideally day of caring. But if you you're gonna have to go over to show expired to do that because that already occurred, so it's gone. So you're gonna click show expired, and then it'll show you all of those that have passed. And then she should be in there and you would be able to her hours. And I do know for Day of Caring, we will be doing so Day of Caring is actually changing names next year, and we're going to be doing two of them, which is very exciting. And I'll have more details on that later, but it's going to be called Day of Action, and Day of Action will again be hosted on Volunteer North Idaho. And one of the hiccups we ran into with it being the first year on Volunteer North Idaho was not everybody was checking in as a volunteer. So we would have like one person sign up and reserve 4 spots on their team, but then the rest of their team would never put in their information. So I'm wondering if with Family Promise, if that was the case, if one person just signed up and then reserved all the spots for other people, and then those people never went in and claimed their spots, which is definitely a way you can do it, but unfortunately, it is kind of a disservice to you on a tracking, standpoint. But we also understand that a lot of those volunteers, they're taking time out of their workday to do it. So we encourage as much as we can for them to be accountable and to log those hours so that you can log those hours. But at the end of the day, it does come down to what those volunteers are willing to do. And as long as they've signed their waiver and are okay to be there, that's the main thing. So,
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, my other question would be, so I saw like a qualifications area and that's really
mhm.
your agency, right? Uh,
Yes.
the form. Okay. So
So if
what,
you have, oh, sorry, continue.
you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you have a qualification need, we are able to build that for you. And I do that on the back end of the website. And so just like I created the qualification for Day of Caring, and we just took our waiver and turned it into a click waiver for all those volunteers to sign up. Basically, it just makes it so that they can still see the need and they can ask to respond to it, but it's not going to actually fully let them register for that until they fill out whatever that qualification is. The only thing that we cannot do is obviously if you required a background check as a qualification, we do not offer that through Volunteer North Idaho, unfortunately. So that has to be done on your end if that's something that, people are interested in. Um, we can set up, click waivers. We can set up, you need to have, you know, XYZ filled out before, you come in, and we can build that form for you. We just need, notice ahead of time so that I can get that done.
Yeah, that was my question. So, like we need van drivers and that's a specific,
Okay.
hour commitment in the morning, hour commitment in the night. And it's not always, we don't always need them because we have some volunteers fill in the space. And
Hmm.
like overnight shifts, those volunteers would need to be background checked. Anybody who has direct
Hmm.
access to children have to have a background check. So would I just put the needs and then say like people would contact me directly and then we could do the training, or like that was the only thing I'm like, how does that work?
That's definitely an option. What does that training look like on your guys' end?
So if they're van driving, it's they go with the lead van driver and he drives them around and they have to be on our
Mhm,
insurance and they have to do a background check. So it's background check.
mhm,
For van driving, it's a background check.
mhm,
Go on the van drive so he can see what to do, where to go, the churches that we go to. And it's
mhm.
like training and then be on our insurance. So that one's pretty simple. Uh,
Okay.
they're going to do a drop off a meal. They're not required to do like background checks, but if they want to stay and do the meal service, they would have to do background check. And we have some videos
Okay.
that they can do that I can send out as well. And then,
Okay.
and then we have some overnight positions if they wanted to do an overnight, sleep at the church with the families.
Okay.
Most of everything requires background checks if you're having an interaction,
Yeah.
which obviously we don't mind doing those, but I just was wondering, like, would I just put that in the title, background check needed, training needed?
Yeah. So what I would do personally in that situation is when I go to create that need, um, is I would go down to the additional options, and there is this little thing of comments you can add, or you can do attributes and add that as a note, like background check required. Um, and then if you what I had suggested, I think it was Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or something like that. I was talking to them, and we had discussed adding a direct link up here in the description to where they go on their site to get that background check. So that way, if they're looking at this need and they want to respond to it, they also have that direct link just to follow all the way through.
I love
Um, I also wonder,
that.
do you guys take background checks from, like, if somebody has theirs done from a previous job, do you take that or does it have to be through your organization?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
Know that if you are with a church and your church is doing background checks, then that's up to their discretion.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make them do additional ones. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know outside of that because our churches in our network there they can do their own background checks. And we accept that. I accept their discretion what their rules are on that. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know outside places. That's a good question.
I'm wondering if, and I can always, so, but the nice thing about this site is it's very customizable on my end, to a certain extent. Uh, is I can constantly add interests and abilities as well as causes. And I wonder if it would be helpful to you and other organizations to add that as a tag. Usually these interest tags are more so that people can find things based on what their interests are so that it pops up on their profile. But I wonder if it would be a good idea to add a like background check required tag just so that people see that. And one of the things about these tags is, do you see this little star here when I select it?
Yeah.
So this is all the star means is this is the main interest. So you might be doing all these three tasks, but this interest is the main thing. So that means whatever is starred is what's going to show up on these interest tags. So this is just your little interest icon. So you could technically, if we were to do that, add that and it wouldn't pop up as like the first thing they see is they need a background check. The first thing they see might be they want to work with kids. And then when they click on that, it's going to also have these interest tags over here. So you know that there's advocacy, but there's also social work. So that's something we can, if that's something you're interested in, I can add that and we can see how that goes for you guys. But I think also just definitely using this comments and attributes because these are just good for additional information. See, it gives the example of like snacks will be provided, wear closed-toed shoes. This is a great place to throw anything like you need to have your own transportation or you need to have a background check or you need to have a valid driver's license. Things like that are great to throw into the attributes tag. um, so Does that answer your question or does that help at all?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna
Okay.
need to get on there and kind of mess around with it and see.
Yes.
It's a little bit unusual here because I can't put dates that I always need it, but like I have
Hmm.
right now that I could really use some volunteers that I'm managing for a couple weeks, and so it's like it's
Mm,
we can always use van drivers. I mean, that's an ongoing need.
yeah.
And meals are an ongoing need, and so is an overnight person when we have these weeks. So it's hard for me to say.
Yeah.
I really need to get somebody in who's interested in it, and then do some
Mhm.
training with them and
When you say ongoing need, is that like, are you guys constantly volunteers like Sunday all the way back to
yes,
Saturday, like
yeah,
all week
yep.
long? So in that case, I would suggest definitely doing the ongoing because
Yeah,
that means you do need volunteers all the time and those times might be shifting. So I would definitely select that for that type of situation. Yeah.
yeah. Our are always. I mean, yeah, it's a constant thing to that we need. We need the same kind of type of volunteers,
Hmm.
and so it's a little different than trying to get an office volunteer from 9 to 4.
Yes. Yes.
So
I understand.
it's not. I can't say
Um,
every day I need it, or it's just different every week as far as
yes, and it's constantly evolving and we want to make it as easy as possible. So um I would say get on there, play with it a little bit. Um, yeah, I would get your immediate needs that are probably the most simple up first,
okay.
honestly, just so that people can see your page is active, just
Okay.
because it hasn't been active in a little bit.
That's
Um, and then you'll start popping up because it'll be fresh and new. It'll be like in most recent as well. So that's always a plus.
okay.
Um, and then if you have questions moving forward, I'm happy to do like a one-on-one meeting again with you and walk you through other solutions. And then if you're interested in creating that interest tag, you can let me know as well. So,
Easy. Thank you so much.
yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, I'm sorry that it was just the two of us, but actually that kind of worked out really well. So I'm glad that that ended up happening to our advantage. So, well, do you have any other final questions for me? Um, we went over exporting reports, and checking in volunteers. Um, yeah, I think I'm just excited to see you guys active on the site again. When I had saw the dual accounts, I was like, oh, like I guess they haven't. I was like, oh no, did they get locked out? Because that happened to one agency and they wound up creating two because they got locked out of theirs. And it was a simple fix. We just changed a password, but it's happened. So I'm glad that we got that figured out.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited for this. I'm going to start working on it right away.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you, Angie. Have a great rest of your day. And let me know if you need any additional support.
Okay. Bye bye.